Hello and good afternoon, Xbox Nation. Welcome to this week's new episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special. I'm your host, Mr. BoomStick XL. And well, ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday and we have two banging topics for you. Get ready for the next 70 plus minutes. Fuzzy Belvedere and myself are going to break down two massive topics that happened over the weekend. And one is Concord. We learned, thanks to Colin Moriarty, that it cost upwards of $400 million. We heard some things that came out of Herman Holtz regarding this being their Sony's Star Wars. Of course, that is, again, any IP that you decide to make, whether you are Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo, you want the best for it. But again, this is one of those games that almost was doomed from the start, considering that it was originally concocted, if you will, or created during the era of course, Overwatch becoming a massive IP. So there was a lot of copycats that have come and gone. This one took 8 years to make. They finally released it, and well, it spent under 14 days with open servers. They had to issue refunds ultimately. They lost all the money they made, and they didn't make a lot of money. They announced, like, I think after like maybe 10 days, they made $1 million, which isn't a lot for a free-to-play game when you include microtransactions and the actual purchase of the game. But ultimately, they gave all of that money back with refunds, something that Sony is not known for, which is a bit shocking, but they did it. Thankfully, if you bought it and you did request a refund, you did get it. Second topic of the day, and this one's a big one, folks, because obviously Dina Bass did a massive monster interview with Sarah Bond, of course, who is the Xbox president. This came out of Bloomberg.com. That's where Dina Bass works. It was also an article that was written by Cecilia D. Anastasio. So they teamed up to write this article. Lots of really, really big points of contention for conversation that Fuzzy and I are going to have. So ready, folks, get ready, hang out, eat your lunch, enjoy your time with Fuzzy and myself here. But Fuzzy, how you doing, man? How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. They had the Texas Chainsaw Massacre trilogy showing, well, not trilogy, but like 3 of the movies shown at the Mahoning Drive-In on Friday, and then they followed it up with Evil Dead on Saturday. So
wow,
yeah,
nice.
had a pretty decent weekend this weekend. Looking at all the games that are out there, still enjoying my time because I decided to revisit State of Decay 2. So just on my zombie killing fix right now. But man, some interesting stuff we hear from Moriarty in reference to Concord, and some great stuff that we can look forward to with Xbox. I'm calling it the Xbox Series Go already. Let's just name it now and look forward to it when they announce it later this year.
Pretty good, man. Xbox, hire this man, give him the zeros, because that's a pretty good name. So if we come back to this next year, or like I said, like I'm suggesting, we're gonna get an unveiling at the Game Awards. That's what my gut is telling me. Now, I don't have massive inside connections. I have a few, and I've kind of reached out to them, and I haven't gotten a response. I think this is super secret information. I'm just basing my simple opinion on what was said by Sarah Bond during the business direct that happened in February. I believe it was February 15th, if I'm not mistaken, of 2024. And that is when, obviously the community was a bit besides themselves regarding, games on Xbox that are known as exclusives going over to PlayStation. They were explaining the mindset behind it. And for some people, they gave the answers that we thought they would give, and others just kind of left the brand. And that's okay. If you don't really feel confident in the brand, I'm not going to try and hold you. I know what the exclusive is, and that is, for me, it's Game Pass. But Sarah Bond did specifically say that they have exciting hardware news to discuss or to speak about during the holiday. And the holiday obviously is not June, like I said in the video that as a matter of fact, on the podcast we said last week, which I made into a video, June, where they showed the 3 new consoles or new versions of the Xbox Series X and S, are not innovative consoles. They're not the next generation of consoles. obviously, when she said hardware, meaning Sarah Bond, I'm pretty sure she meant the Game Awards. At least that is what I am kind of pointing towards, simply because, well, the holiday, the Game Awards happens right before Christmas or the other major holidays, Kwanzaa and Hanukkah and Christmas.
Mhm.
When else are you going to do it? Right? You're not going to do it during the holiday of, I don't know, let's see, Thanksgiving or Halloween. And I mean, those are holidays, but not the holiday. The holiday
Yeah.
is Christmas. And I think that obviously the big one in the big event that happens almost every year and has gotten bigger and bigger each and every year has been the Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards. So let's get right into Concord. This is a game that is, man, this is a layered onion. We have a lot to get in here. Now, Colin Moriarty, we know everyone knows who Colin is. He started out at IGN. He was tag teamed with Greg Miller. They eventually left together to start their own media, which was kind of funny. There was a split, and we're not going to get into it. They did wind up splitting. And of course, most of the people that left IGN with him and Greg stayed behind at Kind of Funny with Greg Miller. He went on, meaning Colin, went on to make his own, media company, and he has quite a bit of a following. Well, he made some big time news, ladies and gentlemen, because we were all under the impression that Concord was a $200 million investment from Sony. And it turns out, in fact, that is exactly what it was. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We understand that Sony added an additional $200 million to try and make it their Star Wars of gaming. And it turns out that the game was already in the hole $200 million prior to that investment, making it over $400 million. I mean, that is pretty incredible when you consider it. What was, obviously, I don't use other people's content, and so you just have to go, if you want to listen to it, go to Colin's YouTube channel, or well, I don't know if he doesn't even have a YouTube channel, and go and follow him on the socials. And you can, I think someone clipped it. It was 9 minutes and 9 seconds. I listened to it multiple times, obviously to prepare for the show. One of the things that he said, and I kind of thought this, but I'm glad he confirmed it, was that $400 million for Concord was not a part of what it cost Sony to actually buy the studio.
Ouch.
Which, I mean, so ultimately, we're not dancing, quote unquote, on the graves of Concord, but I do want to. I'm setting this stage for you folks, right? This is we obviously Fuzzy and I were talking in the green room prior to going live, and there has been a big question with Sony. They are not the same monster that they used to be. They're just not. They haven't been that monster in years. Now, do they make some good games? Sure. Astrobot, one of my favorite games of the year. I'm not going to get into it again, and I'm not going to make excuses for it, why I enjoyed it. But they are not the same animal. And one of the biggest things I think that we have all as a community, and I'm not talking about the toxic Xbox players who just, very much similar to what the PlayStation folks do. They use hate-driven material to kind of get their point across. We're not doing that here. But the biggest question, Fuzzy, has been, where is Sony's roadmap? Well, let me paint another picture for you, folks. I have the answer. I think Sony definitely has the answer. I don't think people want to hear what I have to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. So if you consider a $400 million investment in a game that took 8 years to make, there was according to Colin, a very toxic, I never heard of this terminology, a toxic positive workplace. Like I've never actually kind of heard of that until Colin actually said it. So let's just talk numbers. Let's get to the brass taxes of the conversation, if you will. A $400 million 8-year investment into Concord. Not good, folks. A $315 million investment into Spider-Man 2. Now, Spider-Man 2 is quite a great game. If you don't like it because it's very samey, I hear you, and you're not going to get any fight out of me. I like it. In fact, I liked it a lot. Now, I haven't beaten it yet, but that's because, well, there's only 2 hands and only so many hours in the day when you podcast 5 days a week and you take care of a home. Things have to go to the wayside. So I didn't finish it, but I ultimately will. And I very much enjoyed Insomniac's. Well, it's their second iteration of the Spider-Man franchise, but third in the series when you count Miles Morales.
Yeah.
But that was $315 million. Now, the only thing I can't say with a positive, pointed, conversation is whether or not that $315 million included advertisement. I don't think it did. I'm pretty sure that is the development cost of that game, right? Now, this is where we kind of get a little pointed, because in the same framework that they acquired the studio making Concord, which was a notable addition to PlayStation Studios, they also spent $3.6 billion on Bungie. Now, folks, I'm here to tell you, let's just look at the 3 points of contention here, Fuzzy. $400 million investment for Concord, $315 million investment for Spider-Man 2. Now, I don't know if it's sold enough to make that money back, but remember, that was only on the PlayStation. That was it. You know what I'm saying? It was, it wasn't on PC. It didn't do dual release. So I don't know what happens with that investment. And then, of course, you look at what happened with Bungie. Bungie right now is in disarray. They have leadership that was fired because of allegations. And again, those are not concrete because, they're still investigating, but they were allegations by 8 women within the company. That's a big problem. So that person was fired. Then you have, of course, Marathon being reported upon by very, very pointed people in the industry, one of which I don't even like to mention by name simply because it's like Voldemort. It was reported that it's a mess, the game. So ultimately, what am I saying, folks? What am I going on this long-winded rant for? Well, I think that kind of just paints the picture as to why there is no roadmap. I don't think Sony could afford one. I really think that they are adjusting how they make their games. They are adjusting how much they spend to sell their games, meaning their marketing. And I think that it is a ship that has a lot of holes that they're trying to figure out how to fill. And I think that ultimately is why you don't have a roadmap. I don't know when we're going to get one. There is a state of play happening supposedly tomorrow. I mean, that is the running rumor. It is supposed to be third party only from what I am hearing. There are a couple of, remakes in there. And that's the other thing. What's going on with all these remakes? There have been a bunch of them, and they continue to pop out. As a matter of fact, God of War Ragnarok just released onto PC. And you know what, folks? It didn't sell very well. And you know why it didn't sell very well? Well, because of that whole thing with PSN. They want those PSN numbers, and PC gamers, they don't care. So they're not buying it. They're not playing it. As a matter of fact, it was a third less people playing God of War Ragnarok over the weekend than it was when the original God of War 2018 released on PC. And that is a freaking problem because they need the money. Fuzzy, let's get your thoughts and theories on this. Am I possibly onto something, or do you have another theory?
No, I think you're onto something, because anytime you have that much investment tied up between the development costs and the acquisition costs of, Firewalk and Concord in general, however much they spent, whether it's the 400 million that we're hearing now, or even more so considering the acquisition cost being kind of considered a separate amount. or just the billions of dollars that was thrown at Bungie to bring them in to help them with this games as a service or live service model that they were moving forward with, to only have them kind of burn through talent and burn through money, while one guy's up here buying cars, another guy can't keep his hands to himself, kind of thing. And just a whole other mess of things, of mismanagement and whatnot. Like the stuff that people always used to, blame Microsoft for having, was clear that mismanagement was also happening in the blue camp as well. So anytime you have all that money on the table with those investments, that takes money away from working on a Twisted Metal, or working on, or finishing up factions, or starting something new, or bringing a SOCOM to realization, kind of thing. You can't, like, it's not that we're saying Sony's broke by any means of the imagination, but they don't have the deep coffers that something like Microsoft has. Like Microsoft has hundreds of billions of dollars in like couch cushion money, kind of thing, while Sony is a $100 billion or hundreds of $1 billion company. They don't have that extra cash flow readily available that they can just kind of pick out of their pocket. Like when they're picking out of their pocket, we're talking tens of millions or maybe hundreds of millions, but not hundreds of billions to filter into multiple projects. And all the time that they're also paying to money hat these third party timed exclusives and whatnot. So they have a lot of hands in different cookie jars, and just not having a solid focus on a particular avenue of games or a roadmap in general. Like we remember hearing first it was like 10, it was supposed to be 10 games as a service, then it became 12 games as a service. And then when Hiroki Totoki came in, it's like, nope, 5 or 6, and or we don't even know. We just know it was cut in half, and we think it's like 5, and Concord was one of them. And we got Fair Game, we got Marathon, which Marathon's even going through its transition because they had it originally as an extraction shooter, and they brought in extraction shooter streamers, like Escape from Tarkov and stuff like that. And all of those people at the end of that test were like, nah, I wouldn't play this. Well, no, I'm not even interested. So if they configured that game to now be a hero shooter, which we just saw fail in less than 2 weeks from, Firewalk, which some of the talent there were former Bungie devs and things along those lines. So it's like, it just feels like everything is upside down world over there. I don't know if it's lack of vision from, Jim Ryan. I mean, he kind of got out of the way, or maybe they threw him out the door quietly and made it seem like, oh, early retirement because he's tired of flying, instead of just throwing him out the front door like they did with Sean Layden. But it just feels like there's a massive fire that very few are talking about. Like, I know you don't like talking about Jason, but he made mention about the whole thing with Bungie, and it's like,
yep,
that was supposed to be the better acquisition in Activision, according to some of those in the gaming media, and we see how that's turned out. And I remember hearing some of that same gaming media or some of those same influencers out there saying that, why did Microsoft purchase things like Ninja Theory, or why are they buying up all these studios? But yet when Sony purchased people that like Dirk Griggity would say, like people that nobody's ever heard of before, or like these random teams that come out of nowhere, now we see, well, maybe they were in a state of desperation just to focus on getting into this games as a service niche without really having a true thought out plan, or it's just a matter of them being a group of mismanagement after the likes of Sean Layden and some of the people that were under him wound up leaving or being pushed out the door. Like what was the one woman's name? Dinah or Dana Ross or something like that, she used to do a lot of the, like what Matt Booty used to do, or what Matt Booty does now for Microsoft. She was doing that for PlayStation. They kind of pushed her out the door as well. So it just feels like there's all this mismanagement going on, that toxic positive or positive toxic, atmosphere in the workplace. I've kind of seen some of that. And I talked about that with 3-Bit yesterday on Pixelated Echoes, as far as how sometimes you just want to keep your job and you want to keep the check coming in, because you're not going to stand in the face of your boss that signs your check and say, this is a really bad idea. I mean, some people have the cojones to do that. And there are times where it's probably to your best interest, because ultimately, if this project fails, you're the one that's on the cutting block, probably not your boss. But I just get the feeling that there was that atmosphere where nobody's going to tell Herman Hulst that maybe we should work better on these characters. Like they could have probably snuckily, made a better design. Like, oh, well, these are what you asked for, but I was just messing around and I saw what Overwatch had, and what if we had something a little more like the attractive character models that they have over at Overwatch or something, and see if hopefully they don't push you out the door for breaking the rules or not following instructions. As long as you get the main task done, I don't think that would be the case. But it just feels like nobody was willing to step up and counter all the bad stuff that they saw down the pike. And it's like, I don't know. I've been in that situation. There are times where I've opened my mouth and it probably didn't help my career in the long term. But there's times where it's like, yeah, it's better for me to shut up, because it's like, I'm not going to be the guy that, oh, well, now we make these changes and now it's all on my shoulders. So if it fails, yeah, I'm out the door. If it succeeds, well, it'll just be like, well, good job, and I don't get the extra bonus or whatever type of deal. So it is I mean, the gaming industry itself is a tough work environment to begin with, as far as the turnover rates, as far as the volatility, where if a game doesn't succeed, chances are your doors and lights get cut off, kind of thing. Publishers don't really have I wouldn't say the attention span, but they don't have the patience nor the pockets in some cases, or willing to have the patience with pockets to reinvest or continue supporting a game. Like, we can look at companies like Ubisoft. They will take the extra time and money, even though sometimes to nauseam, to make sure a game either succeeds or at least breaks even. Like, look at all that they've invested in things like Ghost Recon, the more recent one that they did where it didn't have the greatest launch in comparison to Wildlands. I think it was Breakpoint.
Yeah,
The same thing
Breakpoint was okay.
Mhm.
Wildlands was freaking
Yeah,
amazing.
exactly. And things like Rainbow Six Siege, like, at first that didn't seem like it was going to last very long, but they kept at it and made it work. I mean, we went through 3 iterations of the crew before they kind of finally copied Forza Horizon and found some success, in the multi-plat space for that genre, more so than like a Need for Speed kind of thing. So there are some teams out there that are willing to spend the time and the money. And Sony just, whether it's they don't want to have the pockets or they don't have the pockets in general, they're not going to. I mean, obviously, in 10 days, if they shut down Concord, even though they saw the writing kind of on the wall with the beta weekend being such a flat spot, let's say. I mean, if you're having a first party studio for something as premium as PlayStation, only attract like 2,500 people on Steam when you're doing a simultaneous launch on both, you should probably reevaluate some things. I mean, maybe they saw some behind the scene numbers that were a little bit better on the console, but to hear rumors that they only sold about 25,000 copies to make about $1 million back after spending 200 to 400 million, like, that's insane. Like,
Yeah.
I guarantee you, I'm not a game dev, I'm not a project manager for gaming, but I've been a project manager for web related stuff and for retail and commercial stuff in automotive. I guarantee you give me give me half that, give me 200 million. I guarantee you I'll get you a game in less than about 5 years, let's say. And it will definitely do better than what Concord did in its short lifetime. So it just feels like I won't say they don't know what they're doing, but it almost feels like in the games as a service realm, yeah, they really don't know what they're doing. And maybe it's for the best that they go back to their old ways of single player games, but we see that's an expensive road. And even now they're taking the shortcut with doing these remasters, which I don't know, maybe it's just me. I feel anything that's like less than 5 years old or had a re-release before for PC, where in all honesty, that should be as good as it gets, unless you're using, I guess, Horizon Forbidden West assets with the glowing faces in, Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't think that needs a remaster. I mean, I guess all the people that's been buying these remasters kind of told Sony, oh yeah, this works. Yeah, we can recoup some of that $400 million with these remakes. Yeah, we could get these turned out in like 2 years or less and, get some of that cash back. But it's like, I don't know. I really wish they come to the table and show, hey, Ghost of Tsushima 2 or whatever they decide to name it. I don't think it'll be Ghost of Tsushima. It'll be like Ghost of Another Island kind of thing, or or they'll just give it a totally different name, but it'll be basically the second, title in that series. I would love to see what Cory Barlog, his rumored, sci-fi game that he's been working on.
Yep.
So like that needs to be like, unless it's just like BS rumors, that needs to be something that even if they just show concept art, because apparently concept art is acceptable these days, they do need to at least show that much at this point, because it just feels like I bought my PS5 for Gran Turismo and Forbidden West, and I really haven't been excited that much more as far as anything else new. Oh, and Miles Morales was another one that I bought with the Spider-Man remaster, which I guess I'm part of the blame with buying the Spider-Man remaster, but it just feels like at this point, I don't know what else I'm going to be playing other than Gran Turismo on my PS5. So that's why I'm not even in the market for a PS5 Pro.
Yep.
Because yes, while they have the ray tracing on track finally for the PS5 Pro for Gran Turismo, I'm not spending $700 to do that. I would just rather them put it on PC, which rumor has it that might be the next one. Although considering how not well Ragnarok did, we'll see if that winds up happening. But it just feels like Sony is a chicken with his head chopped off kind of thing right now. And I've never seen Sony this way. Like even during PS3 era, Sony wasn't like this. Even when they were all full of themselves saying, get a second job to buy your PS3, they weren't this arrogant. They weren't this discombobulated is about the best way to put it. I just don't know. $400 million, I guess, changed them in a way that we weren't expecting. And now they've kind of either lost their soul or lost their way to some extent, but we'll see. I'm pretty sure people will clip that and be like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just an Xbox. But yeah, okay, whatever. But I'm seeing more and more PlayStation guys now starting to come to the realization that no roadmap. What the F are they doing over there, kind of thing. Like it's been 4 years. You should have at least something more to show than a new console at this point. But that's just me.
I mean, you're not wrong. Listen, there's a lot of reasons why we don't see a roadmap. There's a lot of reasons why it seems, and again, depending on who you ask, depending what sites you frequent, it's unbelievable how Xbox seems to be the one in trouble. We do know and have a roadmap. We know what's coming out this year, next year, and in 2026. And it's a pretty stacked deck. But at the end of the day, this is one of those things that, Sony is no longer, like I said, on paper, they're the market leader. For how much longer, I honestly, I don't know. Especially if Microsoft continues to hit with their first party games, it is going to be very difficult for Sony to maintain that, especially with a new Nintendo coming out. Now, new Nintendo is definitely going to be highlighted in a big way. I listen, it's Sony finds themselves in a pickle, ladies and gentlemen. I really do. I think that for a short burst of potential cash, maybe they need to go back and unearth the Last of Us 2 online. Maybe they need to kind of throw some money at that and put that out, because there's a lot of people that would play that. Sure. I mean, again, the rumors, right, is that this thing was almost done and Bungie was like, yep, cut that sucker off. No good. I mean, I don't know how true that is. This is what the running rumor is. But we will see. I know somebody in the chat, I don't know whether they're being pointed or Al Wilkinson is asking, is this an Xbox show? Sure, it is an Xbox show, Al. And we are talking specifically about Sony right now because when you talk about Xbox, you got to talk about PlayStation. When you talk about PlayStation, you got to talk about Xbox. I think this is a very pointed conversation, and it's news. Yes, this is a Xbox branded show, but I think it's news that's worthy of a conversation because, it is Microsoft's direct competitor. And right now they're having a bit of a hard time at it. I think that, again, when no one's dancing on the graves of Concord or PlayStation for that matter, but it is a conversation certainly worth having. And again, if it's not your conversation you want to listen to, by all means, my friend, you should not have to hate listen to anything. So if it's a bother, you could just switch on to somebody else. I don't know what to tell you, but we do not shy away from having pointed conversations, especially when the news literally just broke over the weekend. So again, apologies if you don't like it, but no one's forcing you to put your ear to the microphone or to the speaker. But listen, let me just catch up on a couple of very, very generous gifted double barrel gaming memberships. That comes the way of not one, but two from Yodani Cusata. So thank you, Yodani, for being so generous. So if you did get one or the two double barrel gaming memberships, please thank Yodani in the chat. I'd greatly appreciate that. But we got to move on to the big topic of the conversation here, and this one is a big one. Now we talked about it to open up. This was a interview by Dina Bass over at Bloomberg.com. She's interviewed Sarah before, but this particular interview, I mean, it's pretty telling that an Xbox handheld is around the corner. Now, is it releasing this year? No, it is not. But my gut tells me we are going to see it. We're going to get it announced at the Game Awards. And again, I'm just basing that on what Sarah said at the beginning of the year during that Business Direct event. She did say, and I quote, exciting hardware to be shown or to be shared during the holiday of 2024. The only big event happening in 2024 during the holiday month would be the Game Awards. Now, if we go based on prior history, Xbox is not afraid or shy, Fuzzy, to show off new hardware because they showed off the Xbox Series X during the 2019 Game Awards, and it shocked the world. And look, I've said this on the on Breakfast with Boom. There is a window that is wide open now. I don't know how long that window stays open for a handheld, especially from the major platformers. The platforms. Sony is rumored to be thinking about one outside of what they released earlier last year, and that was the PlayStation Portal. It's a very nice device. I have used it, and the screen is very impressive, but I don't personally like it simply because, well, it lacks what you would expect a handheld to do. It's basically tied to your console, and yes, you can use it with remote play, but like even Keasante said, it seems like they handicapped this device on purpose. So if you are somewhere and you do remote play your device and there's a power outage, now that thing is completely useless. It's a paperweight because you can't get your console to start because you had a power outage and it reset. So if that does happen, and again, it's a small number that it would happen, but it could happen, makes this thing useless. So if you're on the go and you can't remote play, then what are you going to do? You need hardware to be able to download onto, and that is what is this rumored Xbox handheld is supposed to be. But I have a couple of quotes here that I kind of want to get into. Fuzzy, look, Sarah is a force to be reckoned with. I honestly, I've said this before. I will say it again. I believe she ultimately will replace Phil Spencer as the head of Xbox once he decides to retire. Now, I don't know when that's going to be. Hopefully it's not anytime soon, but I do think that there is something to be said about having her, take over. Now, look, she's very nice. I have not met her, and that's one of my goals as an Xbox guy. Is I want to sit down and have a conversation with her. Maybe I can even interview her for the channel. We'll see. But Fuzzy, one of the things I think that you can promptly say about her is that she has a tenacity that a lot of people don't know. And if you ever wanted to find out, so to speak, look at how she responded while being cross-examined on the stand during the ABK trial. That is the Sarah Bond that you do not want to meet. She's pointed, she's calculated, she bears her fangs, and she did it to great success. She was not shaken or shook, as the kids like to say on the stand. She handled herself like an absolute professional. But during the interview, there were a couple of quotes. Now, this one is the one where I think we're definitely going to see the handheld sooner than later. It says Sarabon aims to expand Xbox beyond consoles into mobile, handhelds, and next generation gaming, leveraging her experience at T-Mobile. A lot of people don't know that's where she came from, and she had a tremendous amount of success there. Um, that's the one thing that stands out for me. But there were a lot of really important conversations that be had. But before we get into any of the actual, snippets, if you will, from the article, I want to get your thoughts on this because, look, during this interview, it was brought to our attention, and we've heard Phil say this. They keep selling the same 200 million. The gaming as a whole continues to sell to the same 200 million consumers, and that is not just Xbox. That is PlayStation, and that is Nintendo. Yes, there are new players, but again, I think it's like a rotating kind of a thing. You get new players and old players leave to do other things. Most people leave to go to PC because it's a cheaper way of gaming. You have full control of graphics, and you can build your PC to run your game how you want to run it, unlike a home console, which is what it is.
Mhm.
Right? You're stuck to what the designers made, and most people like me are happy with that. Anything from this interview like completely jump off the page for you?
Well, I think like it comes down to even her background with T-Mobile and how she's helped them expand their coverage as well as their customer base during her tenure over there. I think the big thing is she sees or realizes that gamers don't just want to play, in front of the TV. Not saying that they're moving away from that completely by any means, but she recognizes that that's not the only place that gamers enjoy, partaking in this hobby. So having a mobile device or using their mobile phone with things like the Game Pass app on your phone, have like a key shear or a backbone on your phone is a way to do that. But if they can have a go between where you don't necessarily have to, go to the smaller screen on a mobile device, and you don't necessarily have to always play hooked to a TV. You can kind of do the in between, much like the Switch did. And we see how well Nintendo did with the Switch. She realizes that that's probably the next iteration for them, or the next step for them to go, because it's a market, one, that Xbox hasn't tapped into, and that a lot of others other than like Nintendo, where they've ruled that kind of area with the DS over all these years, and with the Switch, more recently, it's something that Sony did well, but didn't support as fully as they could. And I know there are a lot of people that were, fans of the Vita or other handheld devices at the time, but it just feels like at this point Xbox recognizes that since we have that continuous play or play anywhere setup where you can play on the console, switch over to your PC or switch over to your phone and pick up where you left off on all of their first party titles or all of their recent first party titles, as well as the many third party titles that they're partnered with, that's something that will be leaps and bounds ahead of the competition when they actually have a handheld. And that will hopefully give them a little bit more of a market share in places or regions like Japan. Like I think that region has really stepped away from the home console. They've either gone PC or they've gone, handheld device or mobile device of some sort. So having that type of product for that region might be that foot in the door more so than it's been ever before for Xbox. And the way we've seen these PC handhelds do, and she's one that always looks at the market, looks at competition, looks at other devices that people are clamoring about. She sees Phil playing his, either MSI Claw or ROG Ally at times. She's playing on one as well. So she understands that those are going to be things that their customer base is looking at as well. So whether they go the software route to help it make a ROG Ally into like a portable Xbox, or even better, just making their own portable Xbox at that point, I think is all those things that she's kind of hinting at, looking at where customers are, looking at how you can expand into mobile and things like that. She's looking at basically the future or the next iteration of Xbox to kind of be that everywhere box that you can take on the go, family vacations or be in the other room while the rest of the family might be watching a movie on TV or watching a game show or whatever. And you can still, have game night in the palm of your hands kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's when they say next gen hardware or new hardware, there is going to be a traditional box underneath your TV. And again, we're going to be covering it tomorrow on the Xbox Factor podcast about the article that came out from Windows Central regarding Xbox gearing up for their 25th anniversary. Now, the 25th anniversary happens to be 2026. And that is when we're expected to see the new hardware. Now, that's not confirmed, but that is when the new Xbox hardware is expected to release. Crazily enough, Halo has also rumored to potentially be happening for 2026. And I think that, I'll say this. I said it in a tweet. I'll say it live on the air. I think the script basically writes itself. You get a new console. You're celebrating the 25th anniversary. And, I don't know, by the way, there's a new freaking Halo to go right along with it. Again, it's a script that writes itself. We're going to get into more specifics tomorrow with Jamie Moran and Infinite Umbra on the new episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. That's tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're also going to be covering, it was confirmed that we kind of knew this, but they reconfirmed it, that Xbox spends $1 billion a year. I mean, that's a B with a billion in Xbox Game Pass. Now, that does not count their own first-party games. Right. That is just their investment into third-party, second-party deals, and indie games. Every year, they invest $1 billion. If any place, with that information, they're not going away anytime soon, and that is why Game Pass is probably still the best place or one of the best subscription services to have. Its value is just, it's unbelievable. But look, I do have a few things pulled up over here. And, obviously, again, this is from the article that I pulled from Bloomberg.com. It says, in her role leading Xbox's hardware development and relationships with publishers, Sarah Bond splits herself between shoring up its traditional gaming business and reaching into untapped areas. She's hinted at new Xbox hardware. Spencer has repeatedly professed his interest in the potential handheld device or in a potential handheld device, while the company has also begun to release Xbox's exclusive games on competing consoles and promoting Netflix-esque subscriptions that don't need a console at all. Again, this just completely leads to the question, is there going to be an Xbox handheld? I think that answers it right there. Yes, there is going to be an Xbox handheld. Fuzzy, what else from this article jumped off the page for you? Because, again, this is a very deep dive into what Sarah does. A lot of the stuff we already knew. But, again, it does bring up a lot of, thoughts and theories as to her personal psyche on what the Xbox looks like moving forward.
Well, just to touch back on the $1 billion in Game Pass, like when she was solely focused on Game Pass, I think those were some of the best moments we saw with third party day and date, entrance in there. And it's continued since then. But I think a lot of it was some of the legwork that she did, reaching out to those publishers, going to different developers and seeing what they might have in their wheelhouse as far as coming out, let's say in a year or two, and then making those deals or giving them the potential to be in front of this larger audience than what the developer may have thought about. So her experience with the Game Pass end of things, as well as just working with those publishers in general, I think has created an unbelievable value with Game Pass, but also it's created those relationships that make it easier now moving forward to go back to companies like Capcom or Sega and get some of their, brand new titles on the platform that weren't 5 years ago, people didn't think that Persona or things like Yakuza would even be on an Xbox. So to get those deals worked out and have it where it's on the platform, and by the way, some of them just happen to be in Game Pass day and date or come straight to Game Pass when they hit the platform. those are huge deals that we can't overlook at this point. Now, on the flip side of things, on the hardware aspects, they just recently did the thing with Amazon with the Fire Stick. So yes, I know there are some people that are not as happy about the no console needed literature and stuff, but it still goes to show that they're trying to reach more than just the console base. So they want to make sure that Xbox can grow beyond the 200 million, give or take, that are always in the console space, let's say. And that's divvied up between, the three bigs, whether it be Nintendo, PlayStation, or Xbox. If they're still fighting over those same 200 million people each and every generation, you have to kind of think outside the box. So if you can find a way to get, the kids that are on the tablets or their phones these days, or, the people that might be on the go or have a smart TV, but weren't really console players or haven't been into buying consoles in a couple of generations, and have it where they could just hook this thing that, one, makes it easier for them to access, streaming services that they already have, like Netflix and, Prime and stuff like that, but can also now game by just having a controller. I think that's part of the things that she contributes for hardware outside of console. And then, like you said earlier, the statements that she said as far as like going for the biggest technological leap in a generation with the next hardware, I'm thinking, even though I know a lot of people think it's just pure power, it'll be the best chipset, and I think that's still part of the equation. But I think another part of it is going to be AI, because we see some of the behind the scenes software stuff that they're testing in the PC space. Like right now, they were trying to do this for Windows 11. Quick Resume was something that was a breakthrough. That I would say, of this generation, that's probably one of the best takeaways from this generation that we can all look back at. Is like, hey, the fact that you can pick up where you left off on a game, that you didn't have to worry about, the save or something like that. It's in like a suspended state, except for some of the multiplayer stuff. But for the single player, it's like the best feature of this generation. And that's stuff that they're now working into the Windows platform, where for PCs, that would be a game changer for the PC space. I don't think they'll ever get it to work for Windows 11, but it seems like it's targeted for Windows 12 when that gets fully released. That Quick Resume will be something of that realm. Another thing that they're doing that I hear for Windows 12 is that they're working on their own DLSS that's software based. So regardless of what video card you have, they're using AI, where if you have an MPU or one of those neuro chip add-ins now, that they, like what they made a big deal with, or big partnership with Intel on, those are going to be things that, if the game is at 1080p, or actually instead of pushing it at 4K where it uses more resources, downscale it to 1080, but up-res by like having the AI take that 1080p image and make it a 1440, or make it a 4K image without using as much resource. So you can have a less powerful chipset, but get the visuals of a much more powerful chipset. And those are things that they're working on in the background. And I kind of expect that those will make their appearance in not just the handheld, but the next console. So I think that's going to be part of that big technological leap. And the other things that they've made mention as far as AI, I know in one of the interviews she was talking about being part of a company that's so heavily invested in AI, that helps with working with devs and what better tools they can provide as far as usership. And I know that that's kind of like a touchy area for some developers or some gaming fans. We don't want to see the industry replaced with AI and stuff like that, but there are tools that can make the development time shorter. There are tools out there that can make the bug testing or the QR testing a lot, or QC testing a lot faster or a lot easier, and catch more things without having to take as much time frame, where you wind up having to have like a day one patch, for the fact that they're at the 11th hour just before it's released, still doing the bug testing in some cases. Now, if you have AI that can assist those matters, you can have some of the bug testing as you go, where it may catch a code error, or it may catch an incompatibility issue or something like that. So there's just so many things in what her background in hardware, her background in software, and dealing with devs and teams all comes together for Xbox's benefit and our benefit in general for as gamers in general. So I'm looking forward to this next generation. If they can knock it out of the park in 2026, like you said, script writes itself. Having Halo at launch, which they try to do this generation, kind of missed it by a year, but if they could do it for the next generation, have everything ready 2026. Oh, by the way, they have all these other games still in development that we know about and some that we don't know about. Like, imagine having Halo, E-Day, and let's say Elder Scrolls 6 as part of your launch lineup in 2026.
Unbelievable.
I don't think anybody could ever talk about a launch lineup being better at that point. Even as good as what Sega's had in its past, I think this would actually, surpass it at that point. So we'll see.
Well, I mean, listen, if we're looking down the line, right, the handheld, I honestly believe is next year. Now, what do I base my opinion on? Just my own personal gut. I don't have it on a good authority that it is next year. We originally heard that they were going to do a dual release in 26, giving you the handheld and, of course, the console under the box, which is expected to be very PC-like, meaning that you're going to be able to play your Steam, your Steam games, your Steam library, as well as your Epic Game Store on there. Again, that's just rumors right now. Personally, I think they need to get out of the way of each other. That's just my personal take on it. As great as, and look, we have, first of all, let me go back into the actual chat here. We have 816 people watching live right now. That is 275 from X, which is awesome, and nearly 550 people from YouTube. I can guarantee that if you are watching this show right now, there is probably a really, really solid chance that you, as a gamer, would go out and buy both upon release. Now, is that in everybody's financial wheelhouse? I don't think I can't pocket watch anybody. I would personally be, if I knew that they were getting both consoles, I'd be saving up for it. That's just me. But I don't think it needs to happen like that. And we said this on Friday, Fuzzy. The longer Microsoft, or specifically Xbox, waits to get into the handheld market, the more difficult it is going to be. There is a new handheld every other month, or I would even dare say every other couple of weeks, you're getting a new one out there. Look at someone like a John Wolf or a Kei Asante, for instance. They have a ton of these. I think Xbox, look, I understand that there's the Steam Decks and the ROG Allies. I had both. Well, I still have a ROG Ally. I had a Steam Deck. Steam Deck wasn't for me. It's fine, right? A dedicated Xbox handheld is going to sell. It's going to sell, and there's a couple of things that need to happen to make it sell. One, it needs to be like your console. You turn it on, and it's like basically turning on your TV with your box. That's what it needs to be. The UI needs to be the same across the board. It also needs to have a significant amount of memory on board so you can download your games and play them natively. Yeah. That is a freaking must, right? But that also, it needs to come out sooner than later. And I look, this is just a theory, folks. I could be 1,000% wrong, and I want to get your hot take on it, Fuzzy. If they show it this year, and I believe in my heart of hearts that they're going to show it at the Game Awards, like I really feel in my gut that is what's going to happen. It could logistically play out like the Series X. They showed the Series X in 2019, and it was out for us to buy in 2020 holiday. And I think that this is one of those scripts that kind of writes itself. They show it this holiday, which of Game Awards, millions of people are watching. Many people of those millions have been asking for an Xbox dedicated handheld. And this is the finite of this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, and Fuzzy. They jump Sony in a big way. Sony as a corporation right now is in a bit of a tailspin. And if you say no because you're console warring, I'm not even going to have a conversation with you. Just read the room. It is not the same Sony. Again, the story came out, I think it was Friday of last week. where they have two things in development, supposedly, right? A PS6 and a rumored handheld.
Mhm.
Let me tell you something. Those are years out. And you know why those are years out? Because they haven't even launched a PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
So they're not going to release a PS6 right away. Microsoft has an Xbox 360 opportunity here. You jump Sony on the handheld, you jump Sony on the box underneath the TV, and you innovate in ways that the console market has never seen before. That is what I think is going to happen. I think you get the handheld next year, and the box underneath the table, underneath your entertainment system
Mhm.
for 2026 to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Xbox. What are your thoughts on that, Fuzzy?
I think it would work because they would, even though you could still use both for that new generation, the handheld doesn't have to be as powerful as the true next generation iteration. It could be along the lines of like the PC handhelds that we see, but maybe on the higher spec of things. I think the best price point is to kind of target it for the $500 mark, without a dock or something like that. And if you do choose to dock it and have it where it can up-res and have like a better than 1440 resolution setup, then you go ahead and do like a dock for somewhere around 100, 150 or so. But I think if they could do that sweet spot of 500 for a handheld, one that's capable for next gen gaming, use something like the Snapdragon chipset that's out there in their AI laptops, so that way you get much better battery life, because I think that's going to be one of the key things is battery life. You want to get somewhere in the 4 to 6 hour range at the minimum. The ROG Ally, although the ROG Ally X I think can get into that ballpark when you're doing like more intensive games, but the previous one was like a 2 hour lifespan when you were doing like 60 frames on something that's a little bit more intense than like Dragon's Dogma or something like that. So having that handheld a full year in advance allows people to have that option for something on the go, and it still be functional or still be usable into the the beginning, let's say 3 or 4 years of the next generation, where most of those games in this is tradition across any platform. Most of those games in the first few years are usually cross-platform, so you'll wind up now having it where some of those are games that will still be playable on, obviously, still playable on the Series S and the Series X. So the handheld should be able to easily handle those. And then maybe at worst, it's locked at like 30 to 40 frames on the stuff that would come in the second half of that generation of the 2026 and newer hardware. But I think having the handheld first allows them to have something, not necessarily to be a head-to-head competition with the Switch 2, but what better way to have something on the shelf while people are looking at a portable gaming system, and let's say they're in similar price points, similar power output, but Xbox now has a whole plethora of games coming out on a regular basis. I would say that would be a compelling thing for, let's say, the casual that just wants gaming on the go, that may not be a diehard Nintendo fan, but just a gaming fan in general. I think that gives them the best opportunity, because like you said, if they wait and let Steam or the Switch 2 grab up that market, and let's say PlayStation decides that they want to be serious about a portable instead of like the Portal that they have now, and they go ahead and do something that can play games natively, that shouldn't be something that Xbox sits on their hands on. And I think you're right. I think 2025 would be a perfect time for it. And then that hopefully gives everybody's wallets enough of a breather for the next gen console in 2026. And
Yep.
I think that's the way they go. And, being that would be their 25th anniversary. I mean, sure, they could probably still sell 25th anniversary handhelds as well, but I think the big console would be the one that people pick up at with the 25th anniversary, logos, or like maybe it's a clear green casing or something along those lines, which I would like for them to even do for the current console. But yeah, I think that would be the best plan, because one, you're getting a bigger potential of customer base because of the handheld. You're probably going to make a bigger dent in the East as far as that customer base, because they're either more so PC based or portable based. So I think it gives you a area to grow, and then people that are looking for that next gen console in time for Grand Theft Auto 6, because Rockstar likes to delay a year. I think that would be the best of timing. You have the handheld to take Grand Theft Auto 6 on the go, and
Yep.
you have the next gen console for next gen graphics for Grand Theft Auto 6.
I mean, there was a story that just broke. I think it was comicbook.com regarding Grand Theft Auto. They talked to a former, again, I don't know why they're former Rockstar. I have no idea. But they said that if a delay was going to be announced, it would be May of next year. That's very precise. And according to the leaker, or the person that they spoke to, that's obviously nameless, for obvious reasons, they are they're very pointed, where they're said that Rockstar is not going to release this game until it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 2026 would be great news for Xbox gamers, because that would be the launch of their hardware, or the new hardware that would play this better, regardless of what Sony's claims the Pro can do. And, again, I'm not going to say it's going to run at 60. I'd still say it's going to run at 30, even with the next gen console. But maybe there'd be an opportunity for Xbox to have a 60 mode. I don't know. I mean, it's next gen hardware. So if it does get delayed, hypothetically, because it is still slated for next year, it would be advantage Xbox. Even if we're hearing, that Sony has the marketing, I don't think it would matter, to be honest with you. There's also a report, and I saw people talking about this in the chat, and I didn't see this story before going live. And I mean, there's a lot of stories. So Nick, obviously, good friend of mine personally, great friend of the community from Xbox era, spoke about the new Batman game reportedly in the works at Rocksteady, and it could be a PS5, PS6 exclusive, or timed exclusive. And it says that this was written by Tyler Fisher. It was posted today, as a matter of fact, early this morning. And again, I want to get into the article. We're not going to cover it now, because I don't like shooting from the hip. I like actually preparing for the conversations that we're going to have. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk about it on Wednesday. We will definitely be talking about it for sure. Folks, there are a couple of caveats I just want to add real quick. Don't get yourself all bent out of shape for a supposed exclusive to PlayStation 5 or 6. There's a couple of things here. One, it's Rocksteady. They take 8 years to make a freaking game. And I'm sorry, I'm not poking fun at the studio. They are a phenomenal development house, but they take a super, super long time. So it's definitely going to be not the PlayStation 5 that this thing is launching for. It would be the PlayStation 6 and Xbox, whatever it's going to be called. And just for shits and giggles, folks, we're in 2024. If they took 8 years, which they kind of normally do, that would get us into 2032. Don't worry about it. Trust me when I tell you, I don't think it's going to be. Maybe it's going to be a timed exclusive. That's just what they do. But I don't think I don't know.
I put this caveat out there. Look at what was it? I forget the name of it. Legacy, Hogwarts Legacy. Was that an exclusive?
No.
WB likes money. WB is having some money woes in some regards, but Hogwarts Legacy was a big success, and that sold everywhere. So to think a company that likes money is going to do an exclusive on PlayStation in 2024 is ridiculous at this point. Just look at Hogwarts Legacy. If they couldn't do an exclusive there, although they did exclusive content, I would expect nothing more than exclusive content. So if anything, maybe there's an exclusive VR mode like they've had in the past with Batman. but the game being exclusive for any PlayStation cat
It's
out there,
unlikely.
don't get your hopes up. Sorry to
Yeah.
disappoint.
Yeah, it would be a big bag, man, and Sony ain't got the money like that to be dropping bags, especially for a game that's just not gonna come out for years. They just obviously released to a lot of drama, if you will, last year. Didn't sell well. WB took a monster bath on Kill Justice League, Kill the Justice Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. They lost millions on that.
And Gotham Knights didn't do quite as well either. So
Gotham Knights was fantastic, but it didn't do well either. So yeah, I again, folks, we will cover it. I promise we will definitely cover it. I want to read the article in depth. I want to reach out to Nick, see what he says. We talk in the DMs all the time. And I want to I'm actually going to watch the episode of Xbox Ever where he does talk about it. So I can get myself caught up to date. Real quick, Nino Vestek, our very generous friend, all the way from Hawaii. So I say aloha to you, my brother. And he says he has gifted one Double Barrel Gaming membership. Once again, brother, that is very kind of you. If you did get this, please thank this man. And we also have Traybone408_, who's been a channel member, for almost a year. So thank you so much. We appreciate the support here, Traybone. He says, we all look back at history and say, wow, I wish I was there. But now we are all a part of the potential downfall of Sony. Can't wait to see the documentaries. I mean, the thing is this. I don't know if I'm comfortable saying that Sony is going anywhere. Could they be purchased? Could PlayStation actually get purchased by like an Apple or an Amazon? Yes. But they are a well-recognized brand. As a matter of fact, the last time I checked, I think they were 9th in the world. Before then, they were 7th. So PlayStation as a brand is in the top 10 most recognizable brands. I don't know if I can be, like I said, I don't think I'd ever say, yeah, Sony's dead. They're in trouble. They're going away. I don't think that they are. I don't think Microsoft wants them to go away. The same way Microsoft never wanted Apple to go away, which is why they bailed them out. Because obviously getting stuff done with regulators then becomes harder if you crushed someone out of business. They don't want to do that. Sony just needs to get their ducks in an order. I don't know how they do that. I don't know when they do that. I think the PlayStation 5 Pro is not a great answer for what the woes they're currently having personally. If you look back at some of the hardware things that they've done, the investment has failed. PSVR 2.0 failed. PlayStation Portal, yeah, it sold a little bit. Might have even sold great, but is anybody buying it now? Is anybody buying it, talking about it now? No, they're not. Those are those are hardware investments that take years and millions of dollars. Look, at the end of the day, Xbox fans have a lot to get excited about in 2024. There was a lot to get excited about last year. There were a lot of fantastic games. In what, less than a week, we have the new Starfield DLC. I freaking cannot wait for that. Aura History Untold is about to release. That is getting very high marks. There's been people out there that have been previewing Flight Simulator 2024, and they've added a lot of quote unquote game to that. So if you are someone that it doesn't not just into flight sims, you might want to check it out. That's coming out this year. You got Indiana Jones coming out this year. Next year is one banger after another, and then 2026. Well, now we're getting rumored that they're preparing for the celebration of the actual brand 25 years. There's potentially a new box. There's potentially a new Halo. There's a lot to get excited about. You might get E-Day in the same window. Could you imagine a Halo and Gears releasing together at least in the same year? Wow. Talk about celebration, right?
Yeah.
But listen, thank you to everyone that tuned in today. Super appreciate it. We're at 875 live viewers. That is pretty crazy for a small show. 550 people on YouTube, 330 people across X or Twitter. And folks, on the Twitter side of things, you might already be subscribed. That's possible. and you're like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to burn out my phone, so I'm just going to watch it on Twitter. But if you're not already subscribed, folks, please consider doing so, because we are on the hunt for 16K. We hit 15K about a month ago. That's a really big number. Again, we started this channel with one sub, and it was Mrs. Boom. That was my first sub, and we've grown it quite a bit, but we've gotten here thanks to you, and we're never going to forget that. And that's why we work so hard to bring the content to you 5 days a week, and we don't do it using clickbait or rhetoric or hate mongering. I don't like any of that content. We try to be honest. We try to be fair. We try to have fun. And if you like all of those things that I just said, please consider subscribing. But Fuzzy, let's get you out of here, brother. Sell the brand of Fuzzy Belvedere. Now, folks, he's here, there, and everywhere when it comes to the podcasting, universe. He's obviously on this channel twice a week. He's also with Mav quite a few times. But his wife just started a new horror podcast, and we're getting into October next week. And well, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of horror going on for her show, as well as Fuzzy continuing his coverage on his YouTube channel. Sell the brand, brother.
Oh, as always, thank you for having me on. This was an awesome conversation. Just love talking about this hobby we both share, and just enjoy interacting with everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for coming out and watching us. We greatly appreciate it. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate it. And for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, just follow me on the app, formerly known as Twitter, at Fuzzy_Belvedere. You can also find me on YouTube. Just do a search for Fuzzy Belvedere, all one word. And then if you have a inkling for horror movies or even horror video games, because we're going to probably do some of that in the month of October as well, just give a follow to my wife, Ferocious Fee, and that's F-I for Fiona, 78 on Twitter, or just do a search for Fright Night with Ferocious Fee on YouTube. Every Friday night, except for this past Friday night because we were at the Mahoning Drive-In, but every Friday night we have an hour to 2 hour podcast talking about a horror movie with a bunch of friends, and we just go over, pointing out some of the fun things about it and some of the things that, the old tropes of, running away from the bad guy and tripping over a branch or something, or running upstairs instead of running out of the front door type of thing for horror movies. And we just have a good time with that. Once again, Fright Night with Ferocious Fee, 6 p.m. Friday nights. But as always, you can find me here for Xbox Lunch Break Special on Mondays and Breakfast with Boom on Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on this channel. And then FSP later tonight on Fun Speculations channel at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Xbox Ultimate, 10 p.m. on Friday night. And then the Shop Podcast on Saturday on PTK Blam's channel. And then Pixelated Echoes with 3-Bit on Sundays at 8 to 8:30 p.m. Just do a search for Pixelated Echoes. Love doing podcasts and love talking to people that are gamers and horror fans. So it's just a bunch of fun to have.
Well, we definitely appreciate you being a part of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. That's going to do it for us here on the Xbox Lunch Break Special. I want to thank you again for not only tuning in, but I want to thank the Super Chats. Well, the Super Chats that usually come in. And of course, all of the channel memberships that continuously come in. They help us more than you could possibly know. And it allows for us to do big giveaways. So again, this week is my birthday week. That's right. Wednesday, I turned 54. I am having a primetime gaming because, again, we don't really celebrate with my family until the weekend. And don't forget, folks, yes, it is my birthday, but Mrs. Boom and I will be celebrating on Breakfast at Boom for our 6th annual Boom's Birthday Bash, where 10 winners are going to get a shot at a $50 gift card. That's right, folks. My birthday, but you get the gifts because we are giving away $500 worth of gift cards, and all you got to do to win is just be in the chat when the show is live. That's it. Super easy. The first 5 winners are going to be channel members, because that's the fair way to do things. Mrs. Boom's rules, and she's not wrong for it. If you support us through channel membership, you're going to get first crack. The first 5 are going to go to channel members. The second 5 are going to be for anybody that's in the chat. And obviously we use a picker that comes the way of StreamYards. I'll give you a hashtag when the show goes live. You put the hashtag in, and well, you're entered, and that's it. And if I pick your name, well, if the picker picks your name, you win. And look, that obviously is extended to outside of the country. If you are outside of the US, we still will honor that $50 prize, and we will do it in the form of a cash deliverance to you, but we only use PayPal. We don't use cash apps at all. So if you do win, let's say, for instance, you live in Africa, or you live in New Zealand or the UK, we will send you the $50 prize in the form of cash. You can just then go spend however you want to spend, but we only use PayPal because it protects us from any scams, and that's super important for us. But again, thank you so much for being here, folks. Appreciate the support. Appreciate all the new subs. Appreciate all of the support through channel memberships and the super chats that come in. And we're going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you, you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special.